Well, actually, one church, one
All right, it's on code. Everybody.
Okay, even the your barbecue, we have
So while I'm here waiting for everybody to load up, if anybody wants to ask questions about iron, cables, we're just waiting. We're gonna get into code, and they're having some, they're taking care of a little bit of business, talking about tubes. Everybody understands the cables that hold up some of your ladder, some of your weight boxes? Why they rot from the inside out? Why they need to be swapped out every so often? Okay? So anybody got any questions in regards to both? We're waiting.
I'm hugging the garbage now.
So while we're here and he's doing a little bit of business, we were running a conversation in the back corner there. What is the difference between an egress stair and a fire escape stair? And what code you should use when you're violating. So the rule of thumb for an egress stair is, can I get a couch and a fridge up there? That's usually an external egress stair that looks like a fire escape. If you can't, then the thing is either 2 feet wide only and it's 45-degree incline, that's probably a fire escape on the building. But again, in 1912 or 1915, they said, we're not going to answer this question anymore. It took all the books that explained what to do and did what? Bonfire, right? And how to inspect. But we were talking about a violation, right? And so we were talking about, he has a building, a structure, and the gentleman in the back, what's his name? We'll call him Captain Rusty. Captain Rusty?
everything all
In the back corners? Huh?
Me or him?
Yeah.
Brad.
See, until you get the haircut,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get the recognition, so obviously he's...
Oh, that's a haircut?
Yes, we tend to just jump ahead of what nature has.
We have hair, we choose not to grow it. So, what chapter you said? If everybody's gonna write a violation, you got 1104 is a typical violation when you're dealing with a fire escape. Further clarification, chapter 1? Tell us.
Yeah, so chapter 110, specifically 110.1 is what you would want to use. And for like balconies, stairways, or other structural conditions, you have the 2-story, 3-story motels with all exits lead to the shared balcony for their egress. You have a lot of issues with rotting, rust, neglect in there. You use 110.1 for an unsafe structure. That's your catch-all. And that also goes under a different citation. Instead of doing our standard 3737.42, you do a 41 citation.
Who else does it bring in? You bring in a buddy.
You bring in
A
your
buddy that
building.
screwed this thing up for 100 years. Who you bringing in? Tell me.
That brings in the building department once you write an unsafe structure or an unsafe building.
Everybody understand that? Who's driving the bus though? You are. Guess who's?
Guys, 1 second here, real quick. Anybody that has not signed in for us yet, well, you guys don't count that. I'm gonna pass it around, find your name, sign it just like we always do. If your name's not on the list, go to the back page, put your name, signature, and email.
It better be on.
Legible. Hey, you're not on the list.
I'm tired of saying
You guys are blind.
that one.
You pay your dues? You pay your dues, you're printed.
So with that, this is very important, guys, that everybody gets this. And I need you just to repeat one more time. So a lot of times 1104 is very specific to the fire escape, but he says chapter 1. He said a very specific code in chapter 1, and he says it automatically brings in the building department, and when you have a complicated client, a complicated landlord, a complicated anything, what do you need? You need every code available to you. So, everybody got that chapter 1? Everybody know what he's talking about? And he says it was a different violation. It was a 41, did he say? What did he say was the? It's going to be admin. Got it? So start every time you walk into, some of these fire escapes are inhabited buildings, hotels and whatever, and you need something, you can't just walk in and just cause all kinds of crazy problems there. So you need something to, you have to have a plan of how you're gonna walk in and give people time
To see what they feel about it.
get this process going. So in order for you to bring in the building department and bring in NFPA and bring in OSHA and bring in all these different cross codes that are there to help you, this guy, whoever owns the building, whoever is the contractor of the building, they will know what this all means. You're not doing a shutdown, because if all of a sudden there is no second means of egress, what do you have that you tell them, because you're not stopping the money train? What can he put up? Scaffolding, right? So it's not like you're shutting things down. You're gonna work. You can also do fire watch, combination fire watch and what do you call it? And the scaffolding. So you can do a lot of different things. You're not here to stop the money train. So normally when I did the class in Vegas, we were doing the class in LA. The code is handled by the architect, who's licensed in over almost 30 states. He talks about this, so I'll just briefly touch upon this, because as you know, level 1, level 2, level 3, depending what you did to the building, let's really clarify what pre-existing non-conforming really means. When I inspect your fire escape, and it has a ladder, and ladders are no longer allowed, that means I inspect that fire escape, and that person will keep his ladder, because I'm inspecting as of the date of installation. That's it. Now, if there was a trigger of some kind, certain percentage of the building got done, the change of use, I mean, you guys got all this. This is not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm just telling you that 75% of the time this will apply. 25% of the time, there's horses at this meeting that you guys are going to do what? You're going to trade. Because you're trying to do something, you're trying to better the situation, and the only way you're going to get better the situation without knocking down this historical building is do what? You're going to horse trade. You're going to say increase your sprinkler size, you're going to put more alarms, keep your fire escape but upgrade it to, make all the rails 42 now, it's horse trading. Does it all meet the code 100%? No. But 75% of the time this does apply. Every now and then you get into a building that somebody did something wrong in 1987. And you get the bag today. It's a brown paper bag. Look inside. And it stinks before you even get to it. In some cases it's already on fire. Right? And you gotta unravel this, and it's just impossible. So what do you gotta do? You gotta go backwards, or sometimes you have to cut a line in the sand and say, what can we do today for the betterment of my community, for the betterment and the safety of my tenants, of the firemen, the police officials, first responders, and all this, and horse trade. Why? Because that's what you do. But 75% of the time, this applies. And if you got a landlord or somebody who keeps throwing his weight around and his money around, what do you apply? The code. That's how you beat him. You beat him with a code. But if you have somebody that's decent, they're trying to do the right thing, you're trying to do the right thing, that's the 25% rule. There's some horse trading, so bring some hay to the meeting, and I'm sure you've met. Question?
Cisco, is that available online? He was asking about that.
Yeah, I can make it available. Again, my architect, the one that does the code review, he explains, and this is boring as all hell, because there's IBC, IFC, the existing building code, the maintenance code. There's just, it's like an octopus, man. But the key is, we're just talking about fire escapes. It's pretty simple. Pre-existing non-conforming. If I'm building a brand new fire escape today on an existing building, which I can, what are some of the horse trading? Windows become doors or not. The historical. Is it hysterical or historical committee?
Same thing.
You have people that don't own buildings, but they tell you how to paint your building. Yeah, the hysterical committee gets together, and they start coming up with all these crazy things that needs to happen on there, right? And so there's horse trading. So that's what this is all about. This is just to help you understand that there is a path, there is triggers. You guys know all about your triggers when you must comply with Chapter 7, to me, he explains all this, and so every fire escape that you have out there can be rebuilt, as of the date of its installation, unless in your historical review, you find that somebody missed something, and it should have either been taken off or upgraded, right? Something should have happened. Why there's still windows here where there should have been doors in 1987? Now it's your call. You're gonna apply 75% of the rule, and every one of those windows will become doors? Or are you going to horse trade and say, you know what, let's put a new line in the sand and let's just bury the past, but let's make it safe for tenants and everybody else in the future? Everybody clear on this? So that's why you're gonna have so many different things, every city. I'll give you an example. Cincinnati. The rule of thumb for fire escapes is 100 pounds per square foot. They allowed, through some ordinance in Cincinnati, to build fire escape stairs 14 inches away with round bars, welded. Okay? And so as I sit there and said, listen, this doesn't meet any, how do you load test that? And so, believe me, some wacky things, and I've seen all kinds of fire escapes. In some of the fire escapes, anybody know what a slidescape is? There's one in Elizabeth, New Jersey, 12 stories high.
Dude, that'd be a hell of a ride.
And you just open up these bags, and there's this corkscrew chute, and you throw yourself in there without a potato sack. There's no potato sacks included. And you go down, and at the very end, there's a door with a paddle on it that in the dark somehow you're supposed to aim your feet if you're not creating a sausage of human people in this thing. And you hit it with your feet, and this door swings open, and there's this last slide. Still active in this 1905 building because it was turn of the century, but in Elizabeth, New Jersey. How about a ballerina fire escape up in, I think it's New Hampshire, where you step out this window, and there's a bar underneath the window, and it goes over there, and so you have to come out the window, and there's a bar here, there's a bar there. I put my feet on the bar, and I hold the bar, so I get out to the window, grab this bar, and the ladder is somewhere over here on this wall, so I have to shimmy over on an existing building. How about a fireman's pole? Rutgers University has this fire escape where you come out, right, and you can go to either side, and it's a fire escape balcony with a round hole and a fireman's pole. So how many drunk students do you know practice sliding down that pole? Still an active building. They've just come up with all these different wacky solutions for fire escapes between slides, ballerinas. They've made everything, and then they just stopped. They said, they started getting better with fire protection. They said no more fire escapes outside. Okay, so is everybody clear? In Ohio, what chapter are you going to use to start off every problem? You walk into a fire escape and it's a problem chapter? 11. What's his name anyone?
Captain Rusty.
Captain Rusty, can you remind people, you walk into any fire escape, you start, I don't care if it just needs a paint job, what chapter should you start off first in the violation?
1104, 16.
No?
110.
Are you talking 110?
Yeah, started with 110, can you also reference 1104? Yeah,
If it's a fire escape, I would go 11 because that's the more specific one.
we know, but you said the 11, does it bring the building department into it?
Yes.
Well, we don't know if it's bad or not.
Right, but chapter 1 does, what's it do?
If you do chapter 1, okay, so if you're gonna use it for fire escapes, I would go with chapter 11, 1104 specifically for that because that creates the inspection. They need to provide that inspection. Then that gives us the avenues for compliance that way. If we go with the chapter 1, specifically the 110 there, you have to provide an overwhelming preponderance of the evidence that that is unsafe and unsound. The problem with that is you get into an issue of issuing a different type of citation again, and once you take a stab at something, you only get one bite at the apple. So if you go down that road and get shut down at the BBA, then you're done. If you do a citation process, at least you have, well, they didn't provide me with an inspection for this. So you have more means to gain compliance through through the, chapter 11. But if it comes back that this isn't being maintained and all that, then you could use chapter 1, or if it's like the exit stairway, the exterior exit stairway, or balconies, or other things outside of a very, very specific thing, then I would use.
So what he's saying is use 1104 to initiate the citation, and then as soon as you get a negative result back from the building inspector, I mean from the design professional, it says it's an unsafe, it's not unsafe. Unsafe means dangling treads, and but you're saying that the structure has deficiencies, and depending on what you call deficiencies, you can generate a chapter 1.
Yeah.
Okay, question?
So, just for clarity, you guys, how can you, isn't chapter 11, requirements for buildings under construction?
No, that's the old code. This is requirements for existing buildings.
Okay,
So chapter 11 used to be construction requirement,
So
or
now it-
fire safety during construction.
so it's, construction requirements for existing buildings?
Yeah.
Okay,
Used to be,
Got it.
used to be the old 40 something.
got it.
47.
Okay.
So, all exterior steel or wooden stairways, balconies, bridges, you said what, it references that all exterior?
Yeah,
What chapter is
that's in
that?
1116 right above.
Got it?
The
So even though it doesn't specifically say, it says fire escapes down below, they really talk about all exterior. You guys remember how many people did this deck kill in Chicago? 27 people died in the,
Check the winery.
Yeah, what's that?
Middle bass.
on a deck, yeah, in Chicago. Probably 5 years ago, 7 years ago.
We just had one pretty recently. It was a gathering of firefighters, in fact, that one of those balconies collapsed. And they sent a whole bunch of people to the hospital.
So now you know, it's covered. All exterior steel or wooden stairways, balconies, bridges must be examined under 1104. Where does it say that? It doesn't, you have to Rosetta Stone all the codes together. Got it? Technical assistance, I just went that with this gentleman here. He has an architect that just wrote him a report that says, because the guy's missing one eye, and what else? He brought his seeing eye panda or something that day. And he said, you know, I'm not too keen on the opinion report that came from this guy who's just kind of winging it. So it says, well, right here, it clearly states that, you know, you have the authority to have the fire escape analyzed by a specialist, qualified engineer, specialist, or fire safety specialty organization. And that it's down here, it says that the official is authorized to require design submittals to be prepared and bear the stamp of registered. So you can have anybody that's considered another be peer reviewed by a structural engineer and require a stamp. So this is the technical assistance. This is what justifies the other, because it doesn't say that. What is another? Well, here's the other. Okay? Confidence test. If you go to, I'm going to show you all kinds of confidence tests. This confidence test is available online and with no name on it. And so some of these cities, this is the city of Lowell, it's one of our model cities. Hopefully we get a model city from one of you guys that wants to do this. Because a lot of times we do these classes, and you know what happens? Until a tenant dies, a fireman dies, or a fireman holding a tenant and a baby dies, and then what happens? Who do they blame? Right? So this is available. If you go to nationalfirescapeassociation.org, click on confidence test, it's a blank. So it's not copywritten. This is very similar to airbags. Do you guys know who invented the airbag? Mercedes did. And Mercedes didn't patent it and could have made billions patenting the airbag. Instead, they gave it to everybody. They said every car should have one of these. This is not something you make money on. This is something that made our industry safer. So, can anybody copy these questions? Sure. Have people copied my questions? he has to have. Do you want us to do it for you? Yes, we can. You want to do it yourself? Yes, you can. There's 25 questions in here, and it's gone through variations, and the variations is there's every one of these questions, which is about 25, hits every specific piece of a fire escape. So if you get an engineer that writes, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, the fire escape is ready for its intended use, well, that's an affidavit. You could stick that in an envelope and go. There's no load test. What criteria did he use? But if you ask, this is the how. This is how an inspector, a structural engineer or a registered architect or other is supposed to answer all these questions. We'll go over these questions with you to understand that. We're now not dealing with the external paint job of a fire escape. We're looking at the internal. Every one of these questions is asking an internal question. Is there any internal rust in any of the connections, specifically the treads? If there is, fix it. Specifically the brackets. If there is, fix it. Specifically inside the wall. If there is, fix it. Specifically on the cantilever. If there is, fix it. Specifically on the ladder. If there is, fix it. It's gone to the internal questions. So the reason why architects are still giving you what you want to hear is because you probably wrote a scrape and paint violation, and how does an architect fix a scrape and paint violation? Scrape and paint it. Did you demand that he load test it upon completion? That would change things, wouldn't you? By the way, architect, at the end of this beautiful paint job, I'd like you to stand underneath it while they load sandbags above. What are you, nuts? No. You're not going to guarantee it to me? Right? Remember the airplanes? Who tested the airplanes that got built during the war? The pilots or the factory guys that had to fly it to the military base?
It was factory guys.
Those factory guys.
Same way with parachutes.
As far as this airplane good? Better be, because you're flying it to the military base before you hand it over to a pilot. So this is just 25 questions. So here's one confidence test. My battery's going dead on this thing. This is a Reg 4, Regulation 4 annual test. There's an annual test in California, and there's a 5-year. In LA, only an annual test has been performed for 100 years. And the annual test is only on the ladder that falls to the ground. That's it. So when you're in LA, guess what you're not going to see outside? A 5-year inspection. Ever. Doesn't mean that a few haven't occurred, but there is no 5-year rule. You go to San Francisco, they have a 1-year and a 5-year. But LA just adopted, California just adopted the code. But now it has to go through that trickle process as to whether cities are going to adopt, modify. And so, what's the difference between a 1-year and a 5-year? A 5-year is a design professional inspection structurally of the internal components of a fire escape, what you see and what you don't see, and concludes in a load test and a tag. A 1-year is by a person, including the agent of the owner, who goes to the roof, climbs over the ladder, comes down the fire escape, looks at all the doors and windows. It's a very visual test, just looking for the obvious. Trees fell on my fire escape, goes all the way down, releases the ladder or the cantilever, goes down to the ground, goes to a public way, signs the document, and he does that every year. How helpful will that be? And do you need an architect, an engineer, or a specialist to do that 1-year test of the system? Nope. Can you incorporate the 1 years into your annual inspections? Imagine walking up to a fire escape on a beautiful building that they have the best alarms, the best batteries, the best smokes, the best, and they've got this old fire escape in the back, and you say, who's going to test it today for me? And you just stand on the bottom, and they say, well, there it is. You said, no, I need somebody to fill out this form here. I need somebody to go to the roof, climb up over the ladder, come down. And I'll just stand here and watch. the 1 year triggers back to 5. So if in the 1 year inspection, there's something that's off, the 1 year stops. He says, you need to do another 5. Something happened, a tree fell on it, the previous 5 year was a joke. So one guy watches the negative, watches the other guy. Because you can't even perform a 1 year unless you have a 5 year in your hand. Except if you live in LA, then you can do 1 year for 100 years. And that's where the AIA convention is going to be next year. It's going to be in LA. And I am licensed in LA. And so it's funny, how many fire escape licenses do you think there are in the US? There is none. So in LA, I have a assemblies tester's license for the 1 year. In Boston, I have a G3 license because I'm an ornamental, guy so they've allowed ornamental guys to sign up on fire escapes in Boston, and they've allowed, 1 year guys in LA. So 2 licenses that exist that are used in 50 states. But there is no physical fire escape inspection license. That's why they say design professional, others acceptable to the building official. The reason I consider myself another, because I teach you guys. And if it's not this room, you know what I have a room? I have a room full of architects and engineers. So that's how you become a specialty. You train the very people who are going to be, and that's what I was telling you, your architect, the National Fire Escape Association will take information from an architect that you question, and he can buddy up with another engineer that you feel comfortable with, or with a specialty organization. So here's another confidence test. Look at their questions. You think LA asked me for any information on their 1 year inspection? I gave a 3-hour class on Reg 4 because of that lawsuit that was happening, and I had invited the fire official. You know how many guys LA I think has like 8 million or 12 million people, probably 1 million buildings, in that whole. Guess how many people run the fire escape inspection division? On a part-time basis. Because the guy who held it before for 10 years. So, confidence test, 25 questions. This is Seattle. My first ever class was, I taught in Seattle, and they didn't even have a question. So this is my first form, and if you go on to seattle.gov, sorry, this is an example. It says City of Lowell, but it's an example of the Seattle. So if you go on to seattle.gov, portland.gov, a lot of the stuff I've taught for almost 15 years in Portland, Oregon. Okay. This is what a 1 year looks like. Bolts look good, paint looks good, all the moving parts look good. Is that pretty simple for a test, a 1 year test? So confidence tests, how-tos. If you go and you type into your computer, fire escape issues, Portland, Oregon. On their website, they have all this information. Guess one of the things that I don't like about Portland, even though I've taught there for 15 years, I have a beautiful relationship with the fire department there. He's since retired. And guess who got a hold of the load testing and all the information there? The building department. So let me tell you what they have. So they kind of helped create the thing, and they kind of tied the fire department's hands, and so one of the things they say, oh, what's that word there?
Witch doctor.
Well, yeah, should say witch doctor. So even though the lead paint rule applies, why is this in there? We've said, why are you? Did I ever say you can't weld? Or did I say it's not the most preferred method because there's so much maintenance that's required after you weld, inserts that you need and all this stuff, and they don't let it, right, move. Because when you weld something, it becomes a fixed connection, right? So they have it in here. Load testing, right? I already told you the load testing, and I used common sense with you, 150-pound person, 300-pound fireman. Let me tell you what they want. They don't want 100 pounds per square foot. They want 200 pounds per square foot. Alright, so they don't want 2,500 bucks on, 2,500 pounds on a 5x5, they want 5,000. These structures are over 100 years old. We fought them tooth and nail, says, you guys, so common sense says that you have to be 2 feet square, 10, 12 feet tall, 700 pounds to meet the 100 pounds per square foot. They want you to be 2 feet square, 22 feet tall, so you have to duck under the fire escape above you. And guess what happens to some of the buildings that they load test at 200 pounds? Because right now we're gonna load test all your 1-ton trucks out there with 2 tons of sand. How you guys gonna do? All your fire hoses that take, what's the pressure? 200, we're gonna do 400. All your fire truck ladders are load tested at what? 500? Let's give it 1,000. And you're welcome to use the truck right after that. So in Portland, with this, and guess who's running the show? Because it involves a permit. Guess who collects that fee? Building department. And guess what they want? Load test that. And then what happens? So we just had this recently happen. One of my structures up there, the fire escape passed. Guess what failed? The building failed. Now you own this building. What's the first? Who do you want to start suing? The guy load testing it, right? Like, what? You broke my building? Sue the city, right? So it can get out of hand, and sometimes when you can complicate it, because building departments build, fire departments do what? Maintain. And they still, including Boston, no, we want to maintain the fire escape still. Even though we have a 5-year rule, even though fire escapes are falling, they're not piggybacking them with some other things, okay? So, confidence tests out there, if you read their questions, they're just like my 25-point question. They try to hit all the components. So at least that sunk through, right? So the question is, what is a proper inspection? And what is a proper tag? This is all they want as a tag in Portland, the year that it was inspected. And you add 4 to it, says that this needs to be load tested again when? Oh, by the way, in Portland, even though you fully refurb the whole fire escape, they still want you to load test it. So any incentive for me to fix my fire escape and avoid load testing? Right? Because the other evidence of strength is what makes people say, no, I don't want to load test. Confidence tests. It's a variation of the same thing. This is a tag. In Portland, and I'm sorry, this is in Seattle, they want the signs to be 19 by 11. Can you see that going down an alleyway? Well, let's take a look at it. That's what it looks like going down an alleyway in the middle of the night. How safe will your firemen feel when they see that white tag permanently affixed to the fire escape 7 to 10 feet off the ground? Do they need to read the date on it, really? No. Or is the color all they need? When you read closer, it tells you who inspected it last, so there's repetitiveness that can happen there, continuity. So you got the tags. The process of inspecting, the process of repair, and the process of painting was never dealt with. And then the EPA came along in 2010 and helped you even with one more thing, and that is lead-based paint. And every fire escape older than 1978 has lead-based paint. That means these guys are no longer allowed. And when you scrape and paint the fire escape, you follow, because there's EPA and there's the OSHA, and they're at odds with each other, because if you have a renovator's license, what do you need to wear? No. A little renovator's license, Mike, you got a renovator's license on a weekend. It costs you $150 to $250. Call the contractors that are taking it. And at the end of an 8-hour day, whether you speak English or not, it doesn't matter, they give you a tag, a certificate that says you are now able to wear this little mask, wear this little white suit, little plastic gloves, lay out some plastic, scrape walls or eaves or fire escapes, collect the chips, bag them, goose them, HEPA vac, and put it into a dumpster, or depending in the area you live in, you can put it out with the trash, you know. But you don't have to sandblast it, you don't have to encapsulate it, you don't have to use negative vac, you don't have to walk in with tanks and then do blood draws. So renovators do blood draws? No. Do we touch lead? Yes. So the EPA is in contradiction with with OSHA. But yet, the EPA collected $300 from everybody who wanted to have this license. And it was a huge, and how many inspectors they had when I took my license? How many inspectors they had nationwide? Dealing with this lead issue? A lot. What? The fine is $37,500. So were they really about enforcement or collecting that $300 fee? Now they're starting to get into the enforcement, but that's why you're dealing with painting on a fire escape. Okay, so we have rules for the inspectors, rules for the repair guys. And this is what happened in 1975 in Boston. And the reason why we added the 5 years, because this occurred. That fireman saved himself with one hand because he grabbed the ladder. The woman died. The niece landed on her, but look at all the rest of that steel coming down on her. 4 stories. So this is what started the 5-year rule there in an IBC state. Load testing. What can you load test with? 50-pound sandbags, right? This is me doing a load testing. You know how many load tests we do nationwide on average? I've been at this since 1971. I've only done maybe 10 load tests my whole life. Why? Because you don't enforce it. Building department enforce it? No. Scrape it and paint it. Unless a fireman dies, then we got to do something else. We got to figure out something else because. But any building inspectors ever die on these things? So when I did this fire escape for Harvard University, I changed all the bolts. And then I said, you know what I'm going to do? On my dime, I'm going to load test this thing and record because somebody's going to want to see how silly this is. So there's several ways to load test a fire escape. 50-pound sandbags, start at the top. That's a 5x5. How many pounds do I put up there? 2,500 pounds. How many bags is that? 50 sandbags. You're going to need all these guys to walk it all the way up, and then you start up there, and then you cascade it down. So then you put some load tests on the stairs, then load tests on the platforms, and then you just keep coming down. And so then you measure before. So if I have 1,000 pounds to put on it, you measure with 40% first. So you put 400 pounds, then you measure it to see if there's any deflection. Seeing no deflection, you add the rest of the 600 pounds, there's your 1,000 pounds. So take a couple of minutes to load test a fire escape. Or does it take a whole day? How many guys? Bunch of guys, right? And your engineer has to be there because he has to constantly be monitoring the situation, right? So that's the cascade method, right? Where you basically bring up all the bags, put them up there, and you start casting. You use the same weight coming down. So you move 2,000 or 3,000 pounds of sand all day long. So now we're loading onto a stair, and we're doing a concentrated load of every other tread, 200 pounds.
I got it.
Hey Tom, he's about started. You want to note that the staircase is starting, what time? Oh, by the way, do you think bags stand still when you put them on stairs, or they keep toppling over? It is ridiculous. This is me now load testing a fire escape in California, I think it's LA. Even though it was fully refurbished, the guy still wanted to load test everyone, the owner. So he ordered the load test, he said, I want the load test anyway. But this time we put the weight down at the bottom, and we used the truck at the bottom as a piece, run cables up, and you run the cables up, and you load test accordingly. So can I put 2,000 pounds down at the ground and then transfer it through a cable up to the top? So how many ways to skin a cat? Just transfer the load, right? Measure before, during, after. How many men? So load testing, cheap or expensive? And can I use that money that I would normally give to a load test company and to use it to buy bolts and paint? Lifting the tail end of a 7,000 pound truck. We were putting about 3,000 pounds. So, aside from this fire escape having, it's the parachute one, there's supposed to be a parachute attached to the wall here. That was you get here. Or you knock on the window, say, I'm looking for the parachute. One parachute, the whole building. Who inspects fire escapes? Engineers. Some cities don't, they say, for example, Philadelphia only wants structural engineers. What happens when you cut who can inspect down to a very small core of people? Because even within the engineers, how many are gonna say yes or no to inspecting fire escapes? That are 100 years old, never touched. How many of them want the liability? None of them. Architects, you see another income stream, say, oh, I can look at that thing. It's just a scrape and paint.
Yeah, because they only care about how it looks, not how it's,
Scrape and paint.
yeah.
So, some people believe you guys have inspected. Because when we get a call, hey, I got a violation from from the fire inspector. He said, all I need, because he looked at it for me, scrape and paint. I said, no, he wants you to examine it, verify the internal. Click. They keep smiling until they get what? You got a welding witch doctor or a welding architect or a welding engineer, a rubber stamper? Oh, I've been doing these for 40 years. Yep, $300, $500. Comes down. Make sure by the time I get there, make sure it's painted. Oh, I'll have it painted, and does he even get out of his car? No. Rolls down his window, looks up, sees nothing out of the ordinary, fills out the form, says, give me the check, here's the certificate, call a drive-by. That's why firemen don't get on these fire escapes. So city officials, they believe, fire escape inspectors, again, others, specialty companies. These are inspections done by engineers. This fire escape, I inspected and you see all the marks, but yet the engineer that looked at this said fix 4 things. Fix 1 or 2 treads that he saw and give it a paint job. I went there and I condemned the whole fire escape. Now, who called me? The city official, the building inspector, or was it the secretary that called me and says, I don't think this guy knows what he's doing? The confidence test will take that away, because when you ask opinions, it's the golden parachute. To the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, and opinion, the fire escape is in conformity with the code and ready for its intended use today. What about tomorrow? Call me again, give me another $500 check, and I'll tell you tomorrow. That's the getaway clause. He's not guaranteeing it for 5 years. He's saying today, none of the pieces on it were on the ground. So but when you make them fill out that questionnaire, the 25-point questionnaire, it's a structural, so that's the difference. Because you're gonna write violations that say the word, 3 things. Inspect it. Test it.
So Cisco, I have a question. Can we take that document and adopt it as, like a policy in the fire department without going through like an act of Congress and getting it into your city municipal code or whatever? Can we?
Sure. So you go on to nationalfireescapeassociation.org. Say typical confidence test, right? It's a 25-point questionnaire. And has no name on it, no distinguishing remarks saying that it's my company or whatever. And you say, here's an industry standard a questionnaire that I'd like you to attach. Because you're gonna get an engineer that's gonna send it on his letterhead. He's gonna say, do you have a document from the state that I could fill out? You say, no, but you're welcome to follow industry standard guidelines.
Okay.
Here's an example. He goes, oh, I'm not gonna fill out that sheet. You say, no, you don't have to. But every one of these questions, just copy them onto your letterhead. That's how you walk around. So right now, the code doesn't tell you how to fix a church steeple. The code doesn't tell you how to fix a clock. The code doesn't tell you certain things about dams. That's industry standards. There is no industry standards. It's 100 years ago, and they burnt all the books. I've been reverse engineering. I haven't run into an alien yet, but this is like, alien technology. I have to go back and keep reading things, and some of the stuff I have to make up, but only after I overlap. It's like the Rosetta Stone of, because I have a master's degree in reverse stupidity. I don't know if you guys know that. Don't ask me how to do it right. I got a million ways to do it wrong. I know all the tricks, I know all the ways, and so that's what allowed me to do the reverse book and say this is how it needs to get done, because I've seen enough. Because there was a vacuum since 1912. There's a vacuum that they burnt all the knowledge. The building department said, well, we're going to rely on the owners to do the right thing and just maintain it at all times. That didn't happen for 100 years. And then the fire department says, hey, we've screwed this up long enough. Here, you guys get a shot at it. And then you guys go back to the building department. Do you have any documentation you can provide to us to help us take this on? They're like, yeah, let me light that bag on fire for you. The information's inside. Right? So you have to sort of work it backwards. So the information, you don't have to, they're never going to put how you fix, but like, can you do what, can you go to Oregon.gov and go take their documents and then just modify what's there? They tell you how to fix it and how to repair it and take away the welding. Say, hey, don't do welding, just get that out of here. Or can you use our questionnaire and put it, go to cityoflowell.gov, you know what I'm saying? And they have a 5-year and a 1-year online.
Yeah,
So-
I'm just specifically talking about this confidence test questionnaire.
Yeah, it's
And the engineers can tell the owner how he has to fix it.
correct.
But this seems to be the.
This is for the engineer. This is a
Right.
questionnaire for the engineer.
I
This
wanna
is the
make sure it
inspection process.
covers everything
So
that should be
it's
looked
free and
at.
available, and as soon as they tell you that they're not gonna fill out any form by somebody that they don't know, you say, I don't care, just
That's all
the
right.
same questions, answer it on your letterhead. That's how you get that. Now, can you adopt it through ordinance and do whatever? You can do anything you want, but every city is different in what they do, but they call it procedures and guidelines in good practice. You guys have that for everything, sprinklers and everything, so
Yeah.
can you devise with help or no help at all, procedures and guidelines? The answer is yes, and then incorporate it into your suggested, I think it's on that sheet, it's on here. It's on the sheet that I have here for you. By the way, there's a copy of the questionnaire in here. Oh man, where is that? It's probably on a different sheet. Yeah, it's how do inspectors work, how do repair guys work, how do painters work. So there's procedures and guidelines that we can share, and they're all on the website, free. You don't have to log in, you don't have to register your name. Just copy and take the information. So let's go into knowing that there's plenty of tags out there, plenty of ways to inspect. These inspections, these questionnaires will bring fear into the heart of any engineer giving you such a document. Because now if there is any injury, it's like the liability rests with who? So this engineer signed off on this fire escape, says just need to scrape and paint. This is in Chicago. This is what I found when I started inspecting it myself. I was able to pull bolts off with my own hands. I try to tell people about it. Guess what happened? Nothing. So confidence tests are basically a way for us to hold the feet of the fire to the design professional. Oh no, not one of these things. You guys have one of these things?
Oh, yeah.
When was the last time you inspected your own fire truck? I mean, this is where you train. So you not only train guys how to avoid these, you actually train guys how to die on these too, because some of these are falling right off the building. So this is like practice dying. You wanna know what a fire escape collapse looks like? We don't wanna do it in some obscure place. Let's go down to the training center and let's go jump on this thing that we throw water at every day, burn it every day. Have guys go out and hack and cough because they couldn't handle the smoke inside and use it as an area of refuge every day, right? So this is a fire tower that I did, and I think it was Waltham, Massachusetts, right? So that's the outside, and that's the inside, and I started ping-ponging the thing. Look at all the rust and the gussets. Look at all the rust and the treads. And on the inside, you guys have that stairway inside, sometimes made out of wood, but it's usually made out of metal. And you burn hay, and you burn all kinds of stuff in there, and you just soak it with water all day long. And there was rust jacking in that. And this is the actual fire escape. I shut down their training tower. So it's like my mom used to say, you point to a finger at anybody, what happens? You always got three pointing back at you. So, any fire towers around here?
Yep.
Close by?
Not real close by, but.
Aaron.
So now you guys can take a peek at it. Now that you know better, and make sure it's safe, or have it inspected. We do, the National Fire Escape Association does it for free. We'll inspect any fire tower for free.
Ours is all
There you go,
inside,
Keith, you can ruffle Owens.
but Owens has got that.
All right, so now let's
That's
take a
in
look
Lake
at
Township,
rust jacking.
not my jurisdiction.
So you give it 25, 50, 75, 100 years, and this is at a hospital for World War II veterans. And the state didn't fix it for 3 years.
No, they're gonna grab your parachute anyway.
Fires, yeah, they already fought a battle, the hell. So you have trucks that's, smash into buildings all the time, fire truck. You know what this is called? Just so you guys know, whenever we had a trash truck or a moving truck that smashes a fire escape, you know what we call it? It's a fire escape lottery ticket. Because guess who gets to rebuild that fire escape 100%? The insurance company. And guess what and even if they just smash the bottom and the rest of it is a piece of glass or above, guess what the insurance company has to fix? The whole thing, because the whole thing has to be brought back into compliance, including must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So a lot of times they would come in and just fix what they smashed. We'd walk in and say, nope, you gotta do the whole thing, because I can't just certify a piece of this fire escape. Oh, but the guy ignored it for 50 years. The guy shouldn't have hit him. But you created this issue for this client. Your guy hitting this client created this issue that was an unknown issue. You own it. Housing authorities. City halls. If you look at this one, this is the city hall, this is the mayor's office. Look.
They really don't like the mayor.
Oh, that's for quicker egress for the mayor. He gets down.
Yeah, gets down a lot
It's
faster.
not the fault of it.
So what you do is if you have this kind of fire escape in your city hall and the mayor is giving you a hard time on fire escape, so listen, let's just go out for a walk. And let's walk down the fire escape, and you make him go first. Believe me, because when he falls through, you're gonna get a whole new mayor. So now, let's go into what's the real issue. We're gonna cover the interiors. Guys, a lot of times, you can't see this. So we've done the outside. 25-point questionnaire covers the outside. The load test is really, because we can't see 8 to 12 inches deep into a wall. Wood structures all have this with a plate on the back. That's just the way it's always been. No lag bolts. You must have a 3/4 rod, 5/8, 3/4, sometimes 7/8 rod coming out, going through the building, picking up a plate on the inside, creating a sandwich. This is why, if the wall comes with it, did you have a fire escape failure or a wall failure? The veneer of the veneer of every building is vinyl siding to it. That's all it is. It's not structural. So if there's water coming in, this is what happens. It starts rotting the inside of it. This is what's happening. See, this is the veneer. This is where it's really tied into, and look at all that rot. This is the main structure, this is the veneer, and what's the telltale sign? Rust, rusty tears pushing out. Inside, look how great it looks outside. But why is it more rusted inside? Why is it so bad inside? Because it never dries. And as long as you give it air and water, you eliminate one of those and you stop rust. So now, we have a question. In some cases, when we're doing a full refurb of a fire escape and we change 95% of it is outside and we change every bolt, that's called other evidence of strength, but there's still a connection back into the building. So we have a choice. Spend $500 opening up every one of these so that a mason can come back in and put all the bricks back. You guys want to touch an old dog, or you want to let sleeping dogs lie? So to avoid the load test with you, what we do is next to this, 5 to 6 inches, 5 to 8 inches away, we drill a new Hilti bolt, 3/4 hole. Is that going to damage the veneer? A 3/4 hole? And it's going to go 8 to 12 inches deep into the second course of brick, which is usually 2 courses to 3 courses of brick, or a masonry block wall, but again, 3 courses of brick. And then you put an epoxy bolt that has a data sheet from Hilti, for example, and anybody else that does epoxy bolts, right? So, and then I mechanically fasten it back to the brackets that we have out there. Do I care about this bolt anymore? It's 5 to 8 inches away. Do I need to open up these bricks? Or do I just need to seal it, so water can stop getting in there? Because this could have happened 50 years ago when the roof was leaking. Is it leaking today? No. But damage is done. So do I have to go back into these 100-year-old structures anymore? Or can I just penetrate the wall? And if the wall is not a good wall, can I go all the way through the wall, put a plate on the inside and create a sandwich? If you don't trust, because sometimes you're going into, especially like Philadelphia, you go through the first layer of bricks and you hit cardboard on the back end, you're like, it's just powder. Will an epoxy bolt hold on to powder? So you need to go in and create a sandwich. Or, in some rare cases, the wall structure is so bad, can I just put legs to the ground on the thing? Because as soon as you put legs on a platform, and you put 2 legs on the outside, the platform goes out 5 feet, and I put 2 legs to the ground sitting on top of sonos. Is there any tension on that wall? Have I transferred, so now the building is a leg, my new legs are legs, and what do I have between the two? A balcony, it's a platform now. Any tension?
Well, you would be sharing the load.
Shear.
You could-
It's all shear.
sharing it, yeah, because you can't, it wouldn't take all the load on the legs. You'd
Right,
still
but
have some against
the load testing
not
is,
as much.
the load testing is a combination of tension, but it's a little bit of shear, but it's mostly in tension. But that's one of the ways that we avoid dealing with buildings when the walls are pretty bad. We can just put 2 legs on the outside. In some cases, we'll put an angle along the whole wall, run it the whole length of the wall, and it'll sit on sonos just outside the wall. Outside, put it on the legs to the ground. Any more problems with the wall? Does the guy have to tear his wall apart and rebuild? Other issue.
I don't know, did you give it new footers,
Say again?
did you give it new footers, or did you tie?
Yeah.
It's the asphalt that was in the street.
No, that's, which doctors do that? So sonotubes, meaning, yeah, it has to be on piers, footings and piers, that's one of the questions. Is the fire escape sitting on piers, is it through bolted, or is it embedded 8 to 12 inches deep? Okay, so we've got, so why is this important? Because we've got a lot of collapses now, where, guess what's giving way? What you can't see. That's what a through bolt looks like on the inside, before you skin it with sheetrock and whatever. That's what the rod looks like inside. This is in Philadelphia, missing platform. You know who fell on that? Nope. Maintenance guys that were just going from this door to that door, and they stepped on a platform that looked like that, and the whole thing just. Now Philadelphia, in 2014 had a major collapse and it hit the national news, and it was huge. One kid died. I was on the expert witness piece on that. I did a class just 6 months before, just like this, to the Liberty chapter. And I said to them, hey, it's not a matter of if, it's when. 6 months later, they had this collapse. They took 3 years to get on the ball, and then in 2017, they said, you know what? We've got an answer. We want all fire escapes inspected in Philadelphia only. We don't care about the rest of the state. And we only want structural engineers. How many of those want to touch fire escapes?
Not me.
So nobody else can inspect fire escapes, just structural engineers. And by the way, this is January 1, 2017. We want every fire escape in all of the entire Philadelphia inspected by July 1, 2017. And they said, oh, and we got a form. We have a copy of their form, which, so this is, you want to act or react. Let's go to their form. Their form is on towards the back. That's the Philadelphia form. And guess who's running it? Fire department or building department? What they get? The money there, buddy. Okay, and guess what they say? Here's the options you have. The fire escape is in a safe condition. You check that and you stamp the bottom by a structural engineer. See you in. If you say safe with repair and maintenance program, what's it need? 100 years later now. Now, there's a category. Worst fire escapes to the best fire escape. Guess who holds the crown of the worst fire escapes in the nation?
Toledo, Washington.
New York.
Philadelphia.
Okay? And so their second option is that safe with a repair and with a repair. So that means the fire escape somehow miraculously is structurally safe. There is no rust, and it just needs a scrape and paint. And you know how long you have to scrape and paint it? 5 years. So you get a safe with a maintenance program that you don't have to address for. And then they have this other one. It's called unsafe, imminent danger. That means treads are falling, things are pulling off the building. So they pigeonholed all these inspectors to give you one or the other. So all these inspectors are like, well, wait a second. I either have to tell you that it's imminent danger, which creates this whole new evacuate the building. You know, you've got 3 days. You know, your firstborn must be sold to the highest. Or it's safe with repair and maintenance program. Oh, by the way, no inspection criteria other than what's in this paper. This is the only sheet. Oh, by the way, does this sheet look familiar? This looks like an envelope, a wall sheet. They just copied a wall sheet. You know, the ones when you're inspecting a 5-story wall? You know, when you inspect a facade? This is a facade inspection. They took out facade at the top and they put fire escape affidavit. Now, since they had my class, have they ever called me back for follow-up inspection or used any of our programs? What year were we in? And I was an expert witness in that case, so they didn't like pay. As you know, insurance companies will pay because the owners in this, cities are limited in liability on how much, but the shame gets what they got. The entire shame. So this is a knee-jerk reaction. This is what you don't want to do. So over the next 3 to 5 years, we can work with a program where we will identify the inspectors and give them a questionnaire. The inspector, the city, the design professional will oversee the vendor, even if it is a witch doctor, and tell them, don't bring the welding rods, right? Because who are you relying on? The vendor to tell you everything's good, or the design professional? And then at the end, right? Because sometimes they'll take an opinion affidavit, right? To the best of my information, knowledge, and belief. Or you want to load test it because it's right in the code. you tell the you tell that design professional, let's load test it, and what is he gonna say to you? You don't need to, man, come on, you know, I went to school, I have 40 years experience, this thing is fine, it's great, but is he there for the funeral? So, you have to load test, and whenever you forget, think fire hoses and ladders. And there's a testing procedure for a reason. You load test elevators for what reason? To see how beautiful the buttons are on the elevator, or to see if the cables are still holding? Do they load test the elevator with real people, or they put plates on there and watch it for an hour? Do they just load test any elevator that shows up, or do they do a pre-load test evaluation of the fire escape to determine whether any repairs are needed prior to a successful load test? Do you guys load test fire hoses with nicks in them? Just throw them away. A couple more years left in that thing. Right? You guys have done everything, but the bastard child of egress, what do we get? Ridicule, scraping paint, fire department in the building, and the building department fighting back and forth. Design professional sending you pokey information. There's another one. This guy fixed his own fire escape. Him and his son did the roof themselves. Lifted all the brackets, and instead of at the end of the fire escape repair, the father and the son who did the roof themselves. They're selling condos. There's some extra bolts. What do men do when we have extra bolts from our engine repair or from our, put it in our drawer because we may need it for the next rebuild, right? And it just had too many bolts anyway. These guys always overbuild stuff. So they're selling the condo. There's a buyer, seller, real estate agents. They're all on the fire escape up here, and it slides down with everything on it. First call made. Anybody have a cell phone? Lawyer. Tell the lawyer to do what? Call the fire and an ambulance. 10-foot drop. OSHA says you die with 6 feet if you fall the wrong way, right?
A startling scene in downtown Colorado Springs Wednesday after a man falls to his death.
I was just walking up the street to get to the bus stop, and the cops were right there, told me I couldn't come this way.
Police say the victim and several others were working on the roof of this privately owned building when the man fell.
He may have fallen a distance of anywhere from 15 to 20 feet is what's being investigated right now.
Tragically, the man died on scene. It's believed he fell from the fire escape and not the roof or a window, although how it happened is still unknown.
That's what's being investigated right now to determine the actual cause of the accident itself.
Right now, police say the death is not criminal and is being called an industrial accident.
There were several witnesses, individuals who were working with the deceased party, and so we've interviewed them as witnesses in this investigation.
It's really sad. I feel bad for his family. I mean, I don't know him, but prayers and best wishes to his family for sure.
Others in the area expressing similar concerns and well wishes, visibly distraught by the day's events.
I mean, I can't even imagine it just coming out to do your job one day and just fall off the building. Like, it's really sad.
So with that, I was called in by OSHA on this one. What happened was a cantilever with a cable on the nose. Familiar? This is not from the piece, but blood on it, man. Sorry, guys. And so the cantilever was frozen. And so he went out to push it down because he wanted to bring all the supplies up to the roof using the fire. Can you use a fire escape as a working platform? OSHA allow you to do that?
You might need it for
So,
egress.
so why do I mention OSHA in my classes? Because who's violating the OSHA law? You or the contractor? So you must have 2 means of egress certified. In case there's going to be use of the fire escape, there's no other way. They got to use the fire escape. The fire escape stays certified, or does it uncertified and it needs to be recertified upon completion of the work? Right? So there's ways that sometimes the fire escape is the only way to to get up there. So that they need, the contractor needs to, so in his permit, when he's pulling his permit, what's he need to have? If you're doing any reviews of any construction documents before it goes to permit, what do you need to have? 2 means of egress, as per OSHA requirement. Right? Just so that, and you don't need, you're not ordering a certificate, you're just saying, hey, I'm going through the documentation, so in case somebody starts a fire, then my firemen need to get in there. These people are gonna self-evacuate through the fire escape, and my men are gonna use the fire escape to get in and put out the fire that they caused. Not having one, then talk to your building department counterpart and say, hey, write a violation, this guy needs to, or you have the 5-year anyway, regardless, as you're doing a review, saying, hey, we're about to get, this thing's supposed to be inspected every 5 years as of 2015. You're already 4 years out of compliance. So what happened is, I'll make it short and sweet, but the cable snapped at the end because he went all the way to the end, and what happened? He jumped up and down. What happened? Nothing. He goes, hey, 2 more of my buddies, come out here. This thing ain't going down. 2 more buddies went out. Said, ready? Then what happened? Snap, the cable came in, caught him underneath the neck and did what? Almost decapitated him, right? So who's it killed?
Anybody?
Everybody.
Except the building.
Well, that's the new ordinance that you're gonna be putting out that says all rents will be collected by the building owner
On the fire escape.
on the fire escape to the outside of the windows.
Witnesses say it sounded like an incredible explosion when the fire escape of the Philadelphia apartment building suddenly collapsed and injured 3 people.
NBC 10 cameras were there as a friend holds on to one of the victim's hands, who is apparently conscious as the victim is placed into an ambulance by medics.
KYW-TV reports a man who was critically injured and 2 women were rushed to local hospitals.
Police believe the bolts of the fire escape appear to have been rusted and dislodged from the brick wall of the apartment building.
The victims fell more than 30 feet to the ground, and now the incident is under investigation. Worth noting, the complex is more than 100 years old and even on Philadelphia's historic registry. Local reporters are all pointing out the city's licenses and inspections department hasn't filed any violations in the past when it comes to the old building, so Sunday's collapse came without warning. Neighbors say the 3 victims, reportedly all in their 20s, may have been partying on the fire escape landing before the incident.
Does that matter anymore? So with that, 6 months prior to that, I gave that class, this happened. 3 years later, they finally, knee-jerk reacted with that thing. The student did die. The girls were all maimed on the issue. And they changed management companies. I got to inspect the same fire escape 5 years later. And they put the platform back, because here I was, I happened to be inspecting in Philadelphia. This is the actual site. Fire escape engineers inspect the summary video over here in Philadelphia. All right. Some of the preliminary information that I'm getting out of this is that this piece here, which this is the back, used to be up against the building. These 2 brackets here used to be going to that 4th, 5th floor up there, where you now see the 2 blowouts. The blowout on the left and the blowout on the right. And it used to be attached there. And then this staircase, which is here, it went to that platform up there. And that platform up there also had a bracket which is now laying inside the floor below. So they either were going up to that upper floor or they were on this fire escape. And as soon as it let go on this side or up above, which looks like it's all blown out, as soon as it let go there, it basically tore away and fell down, or the bracket that holds one of the legs, one of these legs is sitting on a bracket like this, and it's up there. You can see it on the floor below there. See, there's the bracket right there, and there's the other piece that's stuck in the wall. There's the hole in the wall it used to be. That bracket was there to that corner, and it used to support the staircase that used to go to that other top corner there. So that's how this piece. Got it? One of my first cases was in Iowa. This owner, it's a college town, to fix the vinyl siding, took away these brackets, and instead of putting a through bolt back in, put in a flagpole. Students up there watching fireworks, three of them, boom, boom, boom to the ground, that's the thing, that's the fire escape. Then they took the evidence and put it where? In a field, 7 blocks away. This looks like the leg. Fire escape forensics.
Who did that, the building owners?
And the owners. Evidence preservation. But guess what I found?
Hold on a second. Please.
Can we, do you mind, gentlemen? Yeah, hold up here.
The case settled. I found them. The bolt was still in the field. So after they put it back, with or without a building permit.
Without.
They were so unsure of themselves, they put through bolts back in, and they put a leg to the roof. On a pressure treated sleeper or right on the asphalt shingles?
Right
Right on the shingles. As a matter of fact, see these legs over here? There was no legs there before. Onto pressure treated wood or on asphalt shingles? Asphalt shingles. So whenever you stepped on this, it would torque. And then when you took a left, the catwalk, when they finished the roof to go to the ladder, they just didn't want to putting the catwalk back in, so you have to like find your way to the. How easy are these cases? $100 million, easy. You find stupidity and liability all over. Confidence tests will stop this. We're going to go over quickly some of these confidence test questions. The tags. And this is that document. We can provide you. You asked this question. Can we just post something so we can help you write, or you can read this and modify it yourself? I want my inspectors my design professionals to follow these rules, my repair guys to follow these rules, and my paint guys to follow these rules. And you can eliminate the whole thing. You put your name on it. So it's easy just to, I don't know, best practices, it's industry standards and practices, and it's suggestive, meaning, or as required by the design professional. So you basically follow our rules, or the design professional will give us rules that we agree to. So we're back to this point again. The load test calc. 100 pound, 150 pound people. Any problems on a properly built, installed, maintained fire escapes with people doing this? Never, right? As soon as you hear of a collapse anywhere, what happened?
Overloaded.
All right? Maintenance, right? You already know. The only way wasn't maintained. No, it was an act of God. Somebody's going to say all kind, it was overloaded, there's a huge party going on. He goes, doesn't matter. Firemen. Fire escape to the ground, the injuries, deaths, whatever it may be. Somebody's going to say, you know what, too many firemen on the fire escape. What are you going to say? Nope, wasn't maintained. And if there's a collapse, and you have a fire investigator, what's the first thing you should be looking for? So if the fire escape is still up there, but there's pieces of tread that he fell through, whatever, then you're looking at these, right? If somebody fell off the fire escape and they were leaning on the rail, and the 200-pound lateral load test didn't get met, right? So you can have a rail failure. That's what the 200-pound lateral load will do. We'll test for that. But if it's a tubular fire escape and it's 100 years old, you're going to keep it? Can you keep your tube and overlay it with angle and make the angles the new support, the new brackets, the new everything, and keep your old tubes there for visual, whatever, right? Because now, what are we testing on the lateral load test? The not so great unknown tube underneath, and these things usually tie up into cast iron. If I find a cast iron fire escape in your city, cast iron treads, you know what I'm supposed to do? Remove them. It says It said specifically in the 1950s, they started saying, you find any cast, get rid of it. This cast over time becomes brittle. And who tests that? So, this is the most important part when it comes to the dealing of the fire escapes, is who are they for? People to get out, firemen to get in, and properly maintained, which they haven't been for 100 years. What's the proof? How do you know that it's been maintained now? It's got a tag. Now I don't have to go to the city and check the file. Has a tag. So some cities doing it? Yep. Seattle's doing it. Portland's doing it. Everybody in the U.S. doing it? So, you guys want to react? Then follow the Philadelphia model, which is as soon as there's some gruesome situation that occurs, then let's, you know, you can get copies of my tape and just implement everything we talked about today. Or over the next 3 to 5 years, you implement a system here. And what's the system? Step one is identify what color tag on them. Whatever it needs. Needs a yellow, needs a red, or needs a white. Right? Second step is, first ones you fix? Which ones you fix? The yellows or the reds? Fix all the reds. Otherwise, these reds do come with scaffolding and fire watches, right? Both are a combination of, right? Or just one of them, right? So you get all the reds out of the way. How great is that going to be for your city? That you're making every fireman safe because there's no more reds. As soon as I'm done with the red, what color does it go to? Yellow. Goes to yellow. Limited use, right? Can you still work on these? Can people use this to fix windows and do stuff on the yellow? Who's the only one authorized to get on it?
Repair people.
The repair people. The repair people are getting on it. Can they fix more than they can put back the same day? They better have a fire watch or something, but so they take out so many treads, put back so many treads, take out some support, and these things could take a month, 3 months, 6 months. So this is planned. Who's watching them? Building department? No? Who's watching this, guys? No? You guys don't have time to watch these people. Design professional is watching this yellow tag. Because when he's done, what's he got to give you?
He's going to sign stuff.
He's going to put this on there. And then what's he going to give you? Questionnaire, right? So let's take a look at the quick questions on here. And by the way, you know, this is just another one. We just finished doing the San Jose. On the 6th, I go to Oakland and teach a class. And now that San Francisco found out I'm teaching a class in Oakland, what do they want? They're like, oh, we're not going to go to Oakland. You're going to work class here. It's too far away. Good, it's like just over that bridge, right? Yeah. But I've been beating on the door with San Fran for a million years. And it's funny, you got to surround the castle. You got to do one in San Jose, you got to do one far away until they're like, what are you doing? Oh, no. We're going to set this record straight here. It's kind of fun. So, this is just the 1 year in the 5 year. Let's take a look at questions, guys. Ready? You have an example on it. You can go on to nationalfireescapeassociation.org. Click on a button that says confidence test. It's free. It's a printable document. It has no information on it, no phone numbers, no nothing. You can just use that as a standard, send it to anybody. So as soon as you get a document from an architect or an engineer, you send it back to them or you keep it? You keep it. So thank you very much. Obviously you know your job and you answer these questions. Guy is gonna like, uh-oh. When he starts looking at these questions, which are all liability questions, which deal with the internal connections of the fire escape and the internal connections of the fire escape to the building, he goes, I didn't check those things when I inspected it last. Well, then that's not up to me, and I expect you're not going to charge your client any more money because the document you gave me then is a false document. And if that's the case, I may have to report you to the board for providing false information both to an official and also to one of the people in my city. So why don't you just fill out the questions, and if you need to go back, why don't you do that? Why don't you go back and fill out these questions? I'm not gonna do that. Not a problem. Unacceptable report. Hey, Mr. Owner, ask for your money back. Hopefully you paid it on a credit card because you cancel the transaction. But you can also report these people, say, oh, by the way, I don't expect any more of these from you in my city. So let's work this out. But I don't know what to do. I don't know. Listen, it's an association called the National Firescape Association. They'll explain things to you. There's videos online. If you go online and you just type it on Google, right? Or on YouTube, type in Firescape Inspection some city. A lot of my videos I put online free. Just watch me inspect the commercial or residential, and just sort of like whatever he's doing, just do the same thing. Okay? So let's take a look at the questions. Middle of the page. So top, site address, and the owner agent, because a lot of times the owner and the agent are two different people, right? Some information in the middle as to, you know, but that photo is important because I learned this, that city officials a lot of times like the north-south arrow, so we always put a north-south arrow. But right now, you guys also like the A, B, C, D side of things. Pre-plans, right? So as this is on the D side, everybody knows that D is you're on the front of the building, it's on the right side. All right? So we started incorporating, so we'll listen to you guys and we'll add. So the firescape, it either passed or it failed. If there was any repairs, we want some numbers. If there's any permits, we want some numbers. So there's a lot of information that may or may not get filled out on this. Firescape passed or failed. Is there any life safety concerns? If there is, there's a certain response. The visual, did you walk through it or did you have to do it from the ground? Which means what? If I have to look at this from the ground, what's the main reason? It's unsafe structure, so it's already an imminent danger. Or sometimes people says, well, the client wasn't home and I kind of looked at it from the ground. I'd have to reschedule myself to come back. And so you're going to accept that? Well, bring a latitude. Get on it. Eyes on. So the firescape passes with the following, and I put all these codes down here to help you reference a ton of codes, right, down here. So IFC, IBC, ICC, NFPA, so it should all be OSHA, the 1910. Okay, it's all there, so you can throw code around if you want to slap somebody in the head with some code. Firescape is certified by load test done by engineer testing agency at 100 pounds per square foot. Firescape is certified by other evidence of strength, meaning full or partial refurbishment in lieu of a load test. And by the way, the norm is every 15 to 25 years that you put off the load testing, because you're supposed to load test every 5. You do a full refurb. How long is my bolt guaranteed for? 25 to 35 years? 5. A bolt that I get from a manufacturer.
25.
25 to 35 years. So as long as you properly maintain your firescape, can I put off load testing and other evidence of strength? Can I push that as long as they keep painting it and the silicone in the connections? Can I push it off for the next 15 to 25 years? Ideally, our recommendation is that on a structure, it gets load tested, whether you refurbished it or not, every 25 years. That's just our recommendation. And then other evidence of strength is used the remaining time if you did a full refurb. Otherwise, you leave behind any old bolt for me to kiss. What am I going to do? I'm going to kiss it with what? Load test. You leave behind me anything original, what am I going to do to it? So that's called an integrated load test. So you changing all the treads. Do I load test the treads? But the brackets, I'll leave all your rivets there. Do I load test the brackets? So partial load testing happens when you leave some stuff behind. You do 95% of all the bolts, but you don't change the connections into the wall. What do we need to do? A load test just on the connection into the wall. Who designs that? Design professional. Okay? And then the last one, which has been the norm for 100 years. Inspection, the number 3. The firescape system is certified by opinion affidavit accepted by the AHJ as ready for use with opinion disclaimer of liability. Guess who gives the owner a disclaimer of liability? The design professional. that says, by the way, I am not load testing this. My eyeball opinion says that she looks damn good. And you should be okay. But don't ever sue me, because if you do sue me, this disclaimer says that you will pay my lawyers, and if there is any payout, you will pay my payout. And the owners are signing these disclaimer of liabilities for what reason? Because it's the cheaper way out. And the city officials accepting these disclaimer of liabilities, because you guys usually get sued, you guys have $1 million payouts. You guys are limited on what you can get sued for, right? So you're like, yeah, we'll take it. So disclaimer liability has been the norm for 100 years. To the best of my information, knowledge, and believe the fire escape is ready for its intended use today. Acceptable anymore, 100 years later? You write a violation, questionable fire escape, first thing you write? Inspect it. Number 2? Number 3? Test. Just say the word test, because it could be other evidence of strength, right? You'll explain the letter. Test it. What's it mean by test? Your engineer will know. We're either going to do a physical load test on it, because you're going to leave some old bolts behind for me, or you do a full refurb. Your engineer will understand what that means. Okay? Or the inspection failed, it doesn't pass at this time, and it needs a report. By the way, let's take a look at the report. I'm sure you've seen hundreds of these in your city. This is what a typical repair report looks like. Sorry about this. Data sheets. I'm sure you got a lot of these, right? Getting your fire escape scraping and painted.
Bunch, right?
You know who asked for this? The FAA, right? I did an inspection in Pennsylvania, in Oakland, Pennsylvania. They have a radar tower up there that's now used to check planes. The FAA, I had inspected 2 fire escapes there. They spent 3 years finding somebody to fix the fire escape after I created a report for it. It ended up happening that they had to go full circle, because the people they were trying to find were calling us to repair the fire, because nobody knew how to fix it. So at the end of it all, they ended up using us to repair it, because again, it's a niche market, not many people. How many fire escape companies left in the US? How many ornamental? Thousands, right? Who's going to fix this fire escape? The one company, or thousands of ornamentals? Thousands of ornamentals. So does that work for your city? Does work for your city and your ornamental? How about your welding guys? Can they work on these fire escapes? As long as they don't bring any, there's no gas in their welding machines, right? And they use bolts to fix the fire escape, right? So let's take a look at the questions. Ready? I'm going to go very quickly through the questions. The first question is a combination of repair questions and code questions. All fabrication, installation, and maintenance of the fire escape is to code and met industry standard on the date of its installation. This is the pre-existing non-conforming question. So I'm looking at a 75-year-old fire escape. I'm going to certify it with 2 lines of the rails are not 42 inches high, they're 36 inches high. There's only 2 lines, or the bars are 8 inches separation. Is that acceptable? Yes. All fire escapes are examined as of the date of its installation, just like a sprinkler system. Unless there's a major refurbishment of some kind, nothing is upgraded. You must certify the fire escape in its condition. So when I hit a ladder, do I need to turn that into a staircase? Nope. You get to keep it as long as it's maintained as of the date of installation. Now with the code thing, if you triggered something, some change of use, you triggered something that now forced that thing to go into an upgraded system, who will know that? Not me. The design professional in 1987 who should have sat down with you and gone through this, but right now we got it today. So this is that's not what question. There's no question number 2. There's no pre-existing non-conforming issues requiring AHJ notification or approval. So sometimes we have something that should have changed in 1987, and we're here today, and what do we need to do? I got chicken wire, I've got one line, I've got a whole fire escape that lands on a rubber roof, and there's no elevated catwalk, made of metal, probably attached. Right? It goes into a courtyard that's enclosed, you can't get out. I got a fire escape that comes down and goes back into a burning building. The neighbor has removed his fire escape that used to be the crossover. Okay? All wells passed by visual observation unless load tested, right? So the weld question is in here, right? So will I allow welding? Will I pass welding with my eyes? What do I need? Load test. Or, how do I negate a weld? Put in a bolt. Done. So I'll load test it for 500 or I'll put a bolt in it for $5. Which one is cheaper? Put in a bolt. Overall, the fire escape system is structurally sound. That's just me looking at the whole thing as a unit. So as you answer some of these questions, you're going to get an overall. So it either passes overall or it doesn't pass overall, right? Footings in pairs, that's covered here. Walls of attached fire escape system. So every now, I have to look, so your architect and engineer has to look at the envelope now of the building to see if there's a bulge. Is that a good question to have? Because if I'm going to load test it, do I load test something with a bulge? No. Well, if he answers the question here, you know what I'm saying? Because this might be a trigger that says, oh my God, we've got a problem that the building department needs to come in now and deal with this bulge aside from this fire escape. This thing starts growing ears, it becomes a crazy octopus. Does it stop the money train? Or what do you have in your back pocket to help this move along? Scaffolding or fire watch, which means you're not one of the guys that are going to make things bad for this. You have an answer. Scaffold it or fire watch, or a combination of the two. Supports into masonry wall. That means it's buried 8 to 12 inches deep into the wall. That supports into a masonry wall. The next one is through bolts. So it's got to be one or the other, or it might be a combination. It's through bolts. So most of the time, through bolts belong on wood structures. But you do have through bolts on a lot of masonry structures, believe it or not. Old factories tend to have through bolts. Platforms, the whole platform, whether it has grading, diamond plate, wood, cement. There's a platform question here. Slats, grading, mesh, cast iron, it's all on here. Stair stringers. Right? The stringers, that's just the two outside pieces. The top where it clips in and bottom where it clips in, because we have a separate question, is the treads inside the stringers. And all of them have here's the little word that reads below every one of these major ones. Are structurally sound, having no material deterioration, no internal rust jacking, external rust or wood rot, because sometimes people put wood in these things, you know, but you're asking the structural engineer to tell you that he can tell you with certainty that there is no rust in any one of these connections. And you know why? The reason why he can is because when it's brand new, it looks like this. When there's rust, it looks like this, or like this. And if I paint over this with black paint, you tell me that a professional can't tell me there's rust jacking in here? And somebody asked me, do you have to test every bolt? I already know what the inside of it looks like. Inside there looks like this here. And you keep letting it go, it'll look like here. The head and the nut is still there. Did that save your fireman from falling 2 stories off 10 stories? Because what's in between the two? The shaft is gone, right? Question. Railings on platforms and stairs. So there's a railing question. This is part of the 200-pound lateral load test. People smoke. Because where's the new smoking room now, guys? Why is that?
Outside the building.
It's healthy. You don't want smoking buildings anymore. It's very unhealthy for you. And you should get on that plank, that ship's captain's plank, and stay on a fire escape and smoke and vape and do all kinds of things. Right? Who knew that fire escapes were gonna become the de facto smoking room? Vaping room, grow tomatoes and other herbs and
Medical
spices.
marijuana.
Number 13, fixed ladders to the roof. Who are these fixed ladders to the roof for? Firemen. Never
Roof
for
access.
maintenance. Maintenance guys are supposed to go through the interior of a building. All roofs have access to the roof through an interior means. But who are these fire ladders for?
Fire department.
Fire department. So on the 1 year, why do we have it tested? Why do we want them to climb up over the ladder? Because your firemen do. Number 14, balanced ladders or fixed ladders at the very bottom. Some of them are on weighted cables. We want them to be released twice. They need to drop 2 to 3 feet per second and hit the ground and stay down, and not come down like a guillotine. And cantilevers. So some of these are NA. Can't handle all of these. You know what I'm saying? And a cantilever is a weighted balanced fire escape. It's a staircase that when you release it, you're supposed to walk down these 5 steps, hit the pivot point, and it's already on the ground and hits the ground and stays down. How do you know somebody's jury-rigged it so that it's out of balance? If you see a chain on the tail tied back to the fire escape, that's to keep it horizontal. Because if you cut that chain, where's the fire escape cantilever point? To the sky. You would write a violation on that. So to fix a balanced fire escape, cantilever, let's say, $2,500. But for $250, I can buy a chain, tie it to the tail, pull it up, tie it to some non-structural thing on my platform without any care of the impact on it, and just make it horizontal so that you don't write me a violation. Well, now there's a 5-year rule. Does it matter if it has a violation or not? Your law came into effect when? You adopted? Huh?
November 7th.
No, the IFC, you adopted in 2017 or 2015 or just now?
November 7th.
Of this year? Or last year?
2017.
Oh, 2017, I told you. So, everybody's already 2 years out of compliance. You go back to any building that has a fire escape and say, hey, I just need a copy of your certificate. You don't even have to see it. I'm just here for a copy of the certificate. Oh, you mean the smoke alarm and the sprinkler and everything? I have those here for you. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Fire escape on the back. Well, let's go look at it. I don't want to look at it. Need a copy. You're 2 years out of compliance. Do you need a violation? It's required. So that 5-year rule is already in your favor. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to see anything. You don't have to like it or not. It's required. Every 5 years. They're 2 years out of compliance. All right. A couple more questions and we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. Catwalks. You know why we have catwalks on here? Because when you hit a roof, what are you supposed to walk on? A roof or a catwalk? So if there's somebody put a new roof on there, and so from the fire escape over the roof to the ladder of the corner, what are you supposed to have? And when they did that roof, did they put it back? So you must control people all the way to a public way. And for the firemen who are going to cross a fire and the roof's on fire, if there's a catwalk on there, a metal catwalk, and he's got all his gear on, will he rush through the fire? In a properly installed catwalk system. Electrical power, number 17, all components, doors and windows in cages. This is the question about whether or not any broken windows, broken doors, does it look like people can still get out? If I got cages, if I got bars on the window of a bedroom to a fire escape, is that allowed? If I got ACs in the window, are ACs allowed in a window? What's the answer to that? Because people are going to be talking, dude, I'm sweating in here. I got to use the inside units. that have the snorkel that comes out to the window. Can that be pulled away in a moment's notice to get it in and out, both by the tenants and the firemen? So otherwise, can they mount it on the wall? Can the owner cut a hole in the wall and put it up higher and just install it? But otherwise, just put it right in the window, it's an obstruction. All electrical power is more than 10 feet away. Why is this? This has been in the NFPA since 1926, I think it was. That all electrical must be at least 6 feet away.
Energize the escape.
And energize the escape. So like I said, in LA, they got electrocuted on the fire escape. The high voltage lines were on the very top of the, it was only about 3 feet plus away. Now, they just settled, but if I do this, I don't touch it. If I do this, I touch it. What happened? Nobody knows, because that's just, you understand? But if you know that there's power lines too close to the fire escape, what can we do? What will the electric company do? They can move it, or they can put a cowling around it, the orange cowling, and cover it permanently. So you can fight the fire and not energize the fire escape. Overall, the fire escape is not illuminated. How many fire escapes were illuminated in 1915? None. So can you force illumination on a fire escape? Nope. But if there was triggers in 1987 that required the illumination of all exits and stuff like that.
Oil lamps turned on.
Gas lamp.
On fire.
You know, that's kind of funny. You know, the earthquake in San Francisco. What caused most of the fire?
Yes.
Gas lines broken, feeding fire. What saved half of San Francisco? A fireman blew up an entire city block of beautiful, good buildings. You blew them up to create a fire break. Say, hey, you gotta get out. Say, why? I'm gonna blow up your building. You gotta get out. What? Yeah, everybody get out. He's saved. Because the fire just kept burning, and then when it hit that area. So, illuminate. The fire escape has no interior or exterior obstructions such as plants, bikes, trash. You guys got some of those in your fire escapes? You would want your inspector to tell you about those? They have pigeon coops, they have rabbit coops, they have camp plants, all kinds of things growing. Can you obstruct the means of egress? Nope. All right, so overall the fire escape has no storage or flammables such as a snowblower underneath your fire escape, full of gasoline. You know, barbecues and stuff. So you want your inspector to let you know about that? It's a good question for him to ask. The fire escape system is made of painted steel, galvanized steel, aluminum. Can you have aluminum fire escapes? You sure can. It's a metal. Steel, wood or cement. Can I have a cement fire escape? I sure can. Brick, Home Depot ladder. Have you ever seen a Home Depot ladder? Screwed to the side of a wall? Right? Have you seen fire escapes show up in the middle of the night, outside next to a window? So yeah, you can't, there's no platform outside the window, but there's a ladder screwed to the wall next to the attic window. And so you have to sort of stick your head out and sort of somehow go out and grab it. And then the fire escape has been painted, stained, or waterproofed. That's the paint question, isn't it? And then the final question is, the owner is notified by email that this, or by a document that says he's got lead on his fire escape, which changes the rules a little bit, eliminates what, guys? From the work. And then the final question is 25 is the catch-all. What's the catch-all question?
What else is going on?
Something else is, there's always some crazy thing going on the fire escape. And so that catch-all question helps us a lot every now and then because we get some crazy things that people have done. This piece here is a great piece to show because when you paint this and you look at it from 10 feet away, how's it look? Good. But as soon as I turn it this way, is there some deterioration? You know who can see that? Somebody who's 3 feet away. Who's that? Is that you? Or is that an inspector? Right? And then if you turn it upside down, What do you get? Right? Everything is missing. If you have an inspector that knows what rust looks like, does he need to see the inside to prove that that's what it looks like inside? Or does he use the common sense of deduction to say, knowing how rust works, knowing how welds work, knowing the lifespan of cable, knowing that a 1/4 inch of steel will make 1 inch of rust. If this, you leave this alone, a 1/4 inch of steel will make 1 inch of rust. And look, look how it just flakes. So, 100 years, who had this? What department? They held on to it for how long? 100 years, 100 years of silence. They relied on who to maintain it? Building owners, and they did, they scraped it and painted. What'd they do about that?
No.
Nothing. So today, this questionnaire, the very last question, number 24 is what? Has the fire escape been painted? Which really doesn't matter. What really matters is the 24 questions before that that say, is there any internal rust on this 100-year-old? So, it's like asking every grandmother you meet, you got any arthritis?
No.
So this is why, you know, it's gone the 100 years. You guys have the bag. Nobody's telling you how to do it. The proof at the end is going to be the tag that says there's a process. So you got to get the process going. It starts with that. This is the other reason why we're going to do this for you. You guys are going to have some calamity. I already did. This is not my first time in Ohio. I think I did Cleveland. I've done a few other classes in Ohio. Anybody here been to one of my classes before? See? And we've done, ready? Now here's the test. We've done what? So sometimes it takes this for you to get reactive, as opposed to being proactive. And what's the proactive? The proactive is just saying, hey, we have a new policy. You're supposed to have fire escape certified in 2017. I'm just walking into every building that I know has a fire escape, just asking them for a copy of the fire escape so I can properly have it tagged. At the end of this first phase over the next 3 to 5 years, I'm going to make sure that every building is required through ordinance or whatever it's required in my city. Every fire escape must have a tag of some kind. Once you get your tag, we'll determine what the next step is. The ones that are white, we'll leave them alone. The ones that are yellow, I'll work with the owners 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, as long as it's being watched by who? By a design professional. So if it needs 3 months, 6 months, your main concern is it functional for a one-time use? The contract, I mean, the design professional is going to tell you, yes, I've been monitoring the situation. The client has no money, but and who holds all the liability while it's under a yellow? The building owner. So as you're working with them, and it's under limited use, who can use it? No one, other than the vendors repairing it. Who can get on it? No one. What's the only time you'll allow anybody onto it? During a real fire. So if somebody's out there tending to their plants and the fire escape gives way that day, who's liable? Is the design professional liable? No. Fire official liable, who's been working with the owner? No. The owner is liable.
Cisco, your contention that if something bad happens, it's a willful
Neglect.
need. It's willful as opposed to an accident.
Correct.
Is very compelling.
Very.
Yeah.
Our first case, like I said, and they settled quickly.
Yeah.
Here's what happened, and this is actually 2 years, almost 3 years to the date of that fireman getting hurt and falling through 3 sets of steps. We went back there to the exact same fire escape. Almost 3 years later, went there to inspect. The fire escape was in a state of collapse, except for 3 steps.
So he wasn't very smart either, huh?
And right after that, never went to, so the majority of my cases never go to court. Because as soon as you can show neglect, willful neglect, oh, my management companies, yeah, but the management company asked you for authorization to fix it, and you said, no, I don't got the money this year, we'll do it next year. Willful neglect, that opens up the liability on the backside, personal liability. And that's what happened on this gentleman in New York City. He was open, he collected too, so he got his disability and he got his workers' comp settlement, but he also won on the other side, because he sued them for it. This wasn't an accident. This is willful neglect. And that's what happens with all these people here. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, anybody want to volunteer and become the model city? We're always looking for cities that we use as an example in associations. And that way, so we got a Captain Rusty. And Captain Rusty is usually the one that basically starts and shows how to put it on the website, shows what kind of confidence test that we're going to use, you know. And so with that, whether it be be here, could be there, we don't know where it's going to be, right? And then you guys just copycat. So he gets all the scratches on his head. There's already a second round at one of these. So what do we do now? We need a guinea pig. We need somebody to say, let's just start the process. How many years before you guys get this right? 3 to 5. Who's going to fight you? Everybody.
Everyone with a white shirt.
But what are you really doing? Is this a fire escape program, or is this
It's a code enforcement.
or is this you're just identifying every fire escape in your city in its current status? And everybody's already, how many years behind?
2.
So do you even need to write a violation? No. Just you walk in and say, I need a copy of your affidavit. What affidavit? I'm sorry you didn't know about this, but 2017 you're supposed to have this. I didn't know. It's okay, I'll give you 30 days. Keep going on. So, this is why we inspect fire safes that firemen use to save lives. This is the most important part. 100 years later, we know what the problem is, but nobody told you how to do it. Nobody left specific instructions on what the inspectors are supposed to do, what the repair guys are supposed to do and not do, and what the painting guys are supposed to do and not do. So we've been reverse engineering all this for over 15 years, and it wasn't until 2012 that the 5-year rule came into play, because that's the enforcement. The trigger is not that there's something bad there. The trigger is that you're supposed to verify to me that this thing is good every 5 years. So open it up to questions. Now the second half of this is going to be after you guys take a lunch break, right? Is some inspection of fire escape in a specific area, or I think literally right across the street there's a
Yeah,
church.
we'll just go to that one. So we'll break for lunch and try to be back by say 2. 1:30.
2:30?
Yeah, if we're only just gonna do one inspection, probably gonna need a half hour, 45 minutes on that only, just to look at it. Somebody gotta go speak with the church, make sure God doesn't get offended that we're gonna be.
So try to be back by 1:30. We'll at 1:30 we will have a super quick business meeting, so we can President, you wanna say anything?
Yeah. Just make sure you sign into that sheet. We'll do a quick business meeting when we get back at 1:30, and then we'll let you take over.
No problem. And before you guys take a quick break, anybody have questions? Because there's a few questions, so I didn't wanna like cut this short with a question. Any questions while you're still here? Do you have a question?
I just wanted to go over this again and make sure I got this right. Who inspects is,
Design professional
okay.
or others.
Who is qualified to repair, and that is designated by the design professional?
Otherwise, you already know, they're ornamental people and welding guys. And general contractors who have some skill in putting up metal buildings, they're even good. So general contractors, ornamentals, and welding guys, yeah. Under the direction of a design professional.
That's who's certified, basically, is the design professional.
Do I need a permit?
Qualifies.
Do I need a permit? A building permit to fix a fire escape?
Yes.
No, because it's routine maintenance. If I penetrate the building, do I need a permit?
Okay, yes.
Well, just that specific. But the scraping and painting, don't need. Change a bolt, don't need. But doesn't mean that building inspector can't require one. Say, no, I want a full, I want a full building permit. You get any of that money?
Keith, where you wanna go? Don't laugh at me, give an answer.
Can somebody get?
Hey, cocky with me. Hey, now I'm angry.
There's the word, Jay. If anybody wants to give me that card, if anybody wants me to give them information from the National Fire Safety Association, your card. My information and my phone number is right on the book.
We'll call you up.
With what?
Fire escape.
You might be a skipper. I've only got one.
You said it can call Bruce?
Yeah, you can call Mark.
Alright.
He'll come out there with his dog. What are we doing?
Excuse me, Jeffrey, thank you, honey.
Especially when your lady complaining, want to remain anonymous. There's kids living there. There's drug deals going on. They're using rainwater and recirculating it through the building. Which, that's impossible. Unless you have some sort of a reservoir that you're pumping, your plumbing is connected to. I don't know what it always is. So it's.
They're all abandoning.
Yep, that's what they do.